Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Illustration Department podcast. My name is Giuseppe Castellano. In this podcast, I talk to folks in illustration, graphic design, publishing, animation, and other creative fields about their work, the lessons they've learned, and the bumps and bruises they've experienced along the way. In this episode, my guest is Martina Flor, award-winning lettering artist, author, and educator. The entrepreneurial lifestyle is difficult and not for the faint of heart. But as Martina and I discuss, it can be done, and it can be worth your while. Among other topics, Martina shares why creatives, freelance or otherwise, need to embrace self-promotion. She shares the ABCs of how to be a letter designer. And if you want to make your own way as a creative, Martina points out what it takes and where it starts. I hope you enjoy our conversation. You can hear it in my voice. I've had a cold for the past couple of days. I don't know. My energy is like really sapped. So I was like, man, maybe I can, if I postpone. But I just, it's the bet. You know how it is. Like you have your own podcast. It can be sometimes. I worry that if I postpone too many times, then maybe people will start like falling out of interest in wanting to do it. Like, you know what? Never mind. I don't want to do it. Or I paint myself into a corner where I postpone so many times where I don't have a recording for the following week. And I've missed in how many years have we done this? 6 years, missed maybe 3 weeks, 3 episodes in 6 years. And those 3 missed episodes, those 3 weeks where I've skipped a week basically, haunt me. I want to stay weekly. You've had in your podcast 200 plus episodes at this point?
Yeah, something like this. I'm not sure we have recorded up to 200, but we are for sure in the hundreds. Yeah. What's perhaps a plus or an advantage of my podcast is that we have a combination of interviews and conversations with other artists, but also I have some episodes where I'm just talking about a certain topic, client acquisition, portfolio stuff. That gives me also the room to say, hey, if I don't have the time or the room to host the conversation, then I can just record the podcast myself and talk about a certain topic that I find interesting.
See, Martina, I have been thinking about that too. There are other illustration podcasts where the host just talks for, whatever, half an hour, whatever it is. And I've been thinking about doing that too. But if I'm being honest with you and the listener, I'd rather talk to someone. I'd rather learn more about someone interesting in the field than it being me just going like, hi, everybody, let's hear my voice for an hour. I don't know. There's something about it that I personally, it's hard to put into words. Why? Maybe you know what it is? I'm overthinking it. I think it's fine. I'm just overthinking it.
Yeah, and I think it's a format, and I think it also depends on your own goal with the podcast. I remember that when I started the podcast, also most of the episodes were conversations, and at some point I started to feel like I want to also use the podcast as a place where I can build my own confidence in the things that I know. So I started using the podcast as a platform to train myself at speaking about certain topics that perhaps were not topics that I will openly talk about on other platforms. And I thought, hey, I will use my own platform just to train myself and to see how I can share something that I know or is second nature for me in the format of a podcast. The same happened with the books. I think they were, in a way, tools for me to put into words things that were second nature for me. And when you have to write a book, you have to, make sense out of all of this and explain it to someone else. It all depends on what are your goals behind doing something. And I think for you, Giuseppe, it may be that you want to just have those interesting conversations with other people that otherwise you wouldn't have been having conversations with.
Speaking of podcasts, so yours today is called Martina Flor's Open Studio, but it was once called Letter Now. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct.
And you started it in spring of 2021.
Yeah, you have correct information over there.
All right.
Yes,
Thanks to my crack research team, aka me. So why the name change?
I don't remember at this point that so clearly, but I believe that it was, in a way, I felt that the name didn't really reflect the topic, because I was in the beginning, as I mentioned, I was having conversations with lettering artists, and then the podcast turned into a combination of conversations and me speaking about certain topics around building a business with your creative skills.
Right.
So I thought that it was more of an open conversation, or making the doors of my studio open for everybody, and telling the stories, the behind scenes stories.
Yeah.
Also, how do I acquire clients? How do I build my portfolio and all that stuff? And it felt more appropriate to just change the name to something that was more descriptive of the type of podcast that I was offering. And also because for a long time, I offered these open studio sessions in my studio. So I live in Berlin. I have a design studio in Berlin. I wasn't born in Berlin. I was born in Argentina. And I moved to Berlin in 2010, and I opened my lettering studio here. At that time, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any network. And what I did to make myself known, or to create my own network, is to first offer workshops and then offer this open studio. So I would open my studio for people to come visit and speak about my work. So I thought it was already a little bit of part of my branding, and this is why I named it after that.
Yeah. And you've had great guests. I mean, you've had Lisa Congdon, Jessica Hische, Malika Favre. What would you say you've learned through podcasting?
Not necessarily all of us have trained themselves to be communicators. And a pattern that I have noticed is that we are very good at what we do. And oftentimes we are not as good or as not well trained to talk about what we do. Yeah.
We're good at doing the thing, but we're not good at hyping what we do.
And I think that's a learning opportunity for all of us, for me, for you, for your listeners. I think there's something there to explore and to improve for us creatives. I think it's such a valuable, you can tell when someone comes on the podcast and they can talk about their work and they're confident about what they are doing, and they are confident also at selling what they do, which I think is always a plus. If you, as a creative, are great at doing what you do, but at the same time are great at speaking about what you do, you have a card up your sleeve. The other thing that I've learned, which hopefully also my listeners have realized thanks to all of the interviews that I have conducted in the podcast, is that everybody starts small and everybody starts somewhere. And even the bigger artists that you admire on social media, they started the same way that you are starting right now, from in their bedrooms and they had how to exactly, from their closets, and they had no idea how to get started, and they just started, and they just figure things out as they moved on. And I think that's really why I continue to have these conversations with artists in my podcast, is because I want to also show the human side of things, and I also want to show that the people that you think are unreachable and that have been incredibly lucky, or are the chosen ones, are actually normal people. They have insecurities. They have they second guess themselves. So I think that's also something that I want to continue to bring on and to make visible for everybody who is starting new.
Same. What I wanted to do through the podcast was prove that there is no such thing as like one correct way to do any kind of commercial art, whether you're a letterer, editorial illustrator, children's book illustrator, whatever you want to do. There's no like, oh, I need to just put together a portfolio, send it to a bunch of art directors, and there goes my career's off and running. Even the big ones, even the folks that we're all, like you said, the ones that you think are, the chosen ones, the ones that are quote unquote lucky or whatever it is, Yeah, there are definitely, all of us are different. Some of us have privileges and access to education and connections and things like that. But for the most part, it's just, I wanted to do a thing. I started off small. You wouldn't believe the kinds of books I was working on in the very beginning. I don't even want to talk about it. I mean, that's what most people would say. Or the kinds of projects I would work on. It's not in my portfolio, but it was a way of getting started. So the common denominator I've found through the years is just start somewhere. Wherever you start is the right place to start. And I don't know if anyone listening has caught on to this theme, but when I ask people at the end of the episodes to give someone a piece of advice, I mean, easily 7 out of 10 times, maybe more, the advice is just keep going. Just do the thing. Just do it and keep going. Do it and keep going. And I've found personally that to be true. When you have, maybe you have a bad month or a bad year, or it's whatever it is that you're trying to do isn't quite working out the way you want it to work out. That's okay. You have to sort of stay zoomed out and stay diligent, stay focused, and keep going, because that's usually the secret recipe. I mean, people have asked me this over the years as a mentor. What is that one thing that you have to absolutely have as a creative person? And it's like, I mean, it's stick-to-itiveness. I mean, that's it. You got to stick to it.
Yeah. An element to that is that we often believe that if we build it, they will come. That translates for us creatives that in terms of like, if we continue doing the creative work, it will happen at some point. And I think there's more to it. There's more to building a successful career as an illustrator, a lettering artist, a creative, than just doing the creative work and doing great creative work. I think there's other elements that play a role, like talking about your work and being able to sell your services and your work, connecting with people, being good at starting conversations. All of these things are also part of building a successful business as a creative. I always say that our creative work is our superpower, the thing that we have to offer to the world.
Right.
But at the same time, if no one knows that we are doing this thing, if no one knows that our work exists, how are we possibly continue doing the work we do? There's two elements to being successful as a creative. First, doing great work, but also letting other people know that you're doing great work so that they can hire you and they can connect with you and they can collaborate with you.
Yeah, I mean, you're a mentor too. And I've seen this with mentees. The work isn't the problem. It's the getting it out there, quote unquote, get your work out there aspect of creative practice. Obviously, it's involves several factors. You want to email people on the regular, and by people I mean art directors and other art buyers. You want to have some sort of consistent presence on social media, and already I think I've lost about a third of the listeners just by saying that, because most people, me included, loathe social media. But you even have an episode dedicated entirely to social media, talking about basically you kind of have to have it. You sort of have to use it as a tool, and it can be used as a tool. You don't have to use it all the time. You don't have to stare at your phone all day long. Literally reduce the amount of time you spend on social media while using it more effectively. You can absolutely do that. There are ways to do that.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes, we believe that because our businesses are creative, we think that they work differently from other businesses out there. We also need to advertise what we do. We also need to talk about what we do. We also need to make that visible for other people.
Right.
And what I also think is that that's great news for everybody listening, because it starts with you. You have the opportunity to do that. If you have learned a skill to the level that you have as a creative, you can also learn the skill of client acquisition and business. So these are all skills that you can learn the same way that you learn how to draw or how to use Adobe Illustrator. So I feel that we just love to think that if we focus in the creative work, things will happen for us, just because that gives us a perfect excuse to continue doing the work that we love, which is the one we enjoy the most, which is the creative work. But those that really pay attention to all the rest are the ones that stand out, that finally make it.
Sure.
The power is in your hands. The power to promote yourself, to promote your work, to find your opportunities is in your hands. You just have to, get going.
Yes, I agree, obviously, with everything you just said. It definitely feels preachy when someone listening to this is like, dudes, I've been doing that consistently. I'm really good at it, and I'm still not getting traction. So I guess what we're trying to say is, like, give yourself a better chance, a much better chance, significantly better chance, but nothing's guaranteed. Just like nothing's guaranteed in life, obviously, but it's not like you do this and it will happen. It's you do this and you're going to give yourself a much better chance.
It's true what you said. Not everybody makes it. And that depends on a lot of different factors. Depends on the personality of the person, depends on how hard they are willing to work, how long they keep at it. So there's a lot of factors that play a role.
Yeah.
It's like in any other business. There's businesses that succeed, there's others that don't. And that's part of the game. At the same time, I do strongly believe that there is clients for each one of us out there. Each one of us at any stage of their journey are able to serve a client and work with people. Right. When I started 15 years ago, I had clients back then, and my level of skill was 10 years, was very early on. And nowadays, 15 years later, I have a different level of skill and I continue having clients. So the level of skill that you have doesn't really determine whether you can be successful as a creative or not.
True.
And as I said before, not everybody is willing to put in all of the work that is required to learn all these skills. Right. And that's totally fine. And I think that everybody has the right to give it a shot and to also discover in the way that it's like, hey, I don't want this so much, or I don't want to go that deep into this. I'm not willing to sacrifice other things to learn these other skills. I'd rather go get a job somewhere else and do something else and keep this as a hobby, which is super legit.
Or come back to it later, sometimes years later.
Yeah. As a mentor, that's also tough, but I had a mentor myself, which told me something that stayed with me, which is you're not responsible of their transformation. Your mentees are responsible for their transformation, and they have to want it deeply to actually do the transformation. Right. So you, as a mentor, you have to learn to keep a distance with the process of the mentee, because they, in the process of doing the thing that you're helping them do, they will also discover that perhaps they don't want it as much, or perhaps they have other priorities, or perhaps, this is not what they're meant to do or to be. Right. It's a self-discovery process, the one of building a business. I do believe that is, if you are building a creative business, you will discover a lot of things about yourself. There will be a lot of stuff coming out.
Oh my God. That is too true, man. Oh my God. Yeah. I've learned more about myself as a person, more about my mental health, more about my stamina, more about everything through the illustration department. I've learned more about myself through my own business than I ever did working in corporate publishing, for sure.
For sure. And I realized that this mentoring program has a lot of personal elements, a lot of, and that's why I keep the program really small, the group really small, because there's a lot of personal stuff coming up. You need to feel that you're in a safe space to be able to process those things.
Exactly.
But, all your fears, all your traumas as a kid, they all come out as you are building your business.
Yeah.
It's a tough process.
This podcast is produced by the Illustration Department, a global leader in online education for illustrators. Visit illustrationdept.com for offerings like mentorships and portfolio reviews, testimonials, our alumni showcase, our best-selling Substack, and more. That's illustrationdept.com. And now, back to our conversation. I find, because I'm a human being, newsflash, I find that every now and then, not as much these days. It's waning, thank goodness. But for a while, especially when the illustration department was like kind of coming up, and there was some, it was still unclear if this was gonna like really last. I just would doubt the realness of it. The realness is not the right word. My brain's not working. I doubt, is this a real job? Mm-hmm. I mentor illustrators all day long. It's not like I'm not an investment banker. I'm not, and I'm surrounded with my wife's family, with my family, everyone has like quote unquote real jobs. And I'm sitting here talking to illustrators all day long about like the benefit of using pinks with greens. And it's sometimes I I hear myself having these conversations going like, how is this real? How am I getting away with this?
Oh yeah. And that's also the reason why we find it so hard to charge fairly for what we do. I think that, deep inside, many of us feel like we're ripping off people because we are charging for something we will be doing anyways. And I think that's the reason why many creatives out there are being underpaid, is because they feel guilty asking for money for something they will be doing anyways for joy.
Right. Sure.
And because also we are so available because we want to do the project regardless of whether they pay us or not. So oftentimes we are too available for clients. We make ourselves too available, right, because we want to have that project. We want to do that project. We want to include that in our portfolio. We want to have the joy and experience the joy of doing that illustration for that client. Mm-hmm. So this is a great thing about our job, and also it's also the biggest challenge, I believe.
With respect to letter design, there are folks listening who either want to get into being letter designers, or, I mean, is that what you would call it, a letter designer, or would you just call it like a graphic designer?
Letter designer, I would say.
Letter designer.
Yeah, I would say it's like a discipline within graphic design.
Sure. For people who want to get into letter design, or are in letter design, and they want to, hear a couple tips, or sort of like, okay, what should I be focusing on over the next couple of months into the next, years? What would you advise?
So you mean learning the skill or working professionally with letter design?
Working professionally.
Okay. So the biggest thing that you can do as a designer, as an illustrator, as a lettering designer, is to start including some of your work, some of the work you want to do in your portfolio.
For sure.
In my experience, many of those who approach letter design are because they have approached the world of creativity from design or from illustration, and they want to go deeper into the expertise of letter illustration and letter design, right? So they are either illustrators or designers who dive into letter design at some point of their career because they want to explore this side of design, or they want to incorporate some interesting work in their mix. Mm-hmm. So I work with a lot of graphic designers, for instance, like generalist graphic designers who want to use lettering design or want to learn lettering design as a way of becoming experts at logotype design or at creating illustrations with lettering and typography. This is, for instance, my own experience I'm originally a graphic designer who specialized in letter design. I found in letter design, the perfect combination of two things that I really love, which was design. There's the systems, there's the alphabet. You cannot just draw anything. You have to stay within the boundaries of legibility, and it needs to be read as an H, as an A. So you have, on one hand, the systems and the structure of design. And then on the other hand, you have all the expressiveness of illustration. So you can bring your own style onto the table, onto the project. And I think that is what makes, for most people, the most attractive part of letter design, that it gives you that structure and at the same time that opportunity for self-expression. And most of the designers that come into my programs or that I work with, they want to do more interesting work. And one great work, a great way of starting to get work in letter design is by leveraging the people they are already working with, because they are already working with branding clients or with graphic design clients. So what I always recommend is to start incorporating some of their lettering work in their design work. So if you're creating a branding system for a client, instead of using a font to create the logotype, just use your lettering skills to draw that logotype. Or if you're designing a book cover for a client, instead of using any font out there, just draw the letter forms themselves. And this is a way of infusing some of the work that you want to do and that you're already doing on your free time into the professional work that you're doing. And the same happens for illustrators. So illustrators that are approaching the world of lettering, they can already start infusing words and texts and quotes into their illustration work, which will also help them be seen as a much more illustrators that can approach different styles or different projects, because they can also draw letter forms.
Absolutely. When I was an art director and I would check out illustrators' portfolios for their illustrations, for book cover, picture book, whatever, if I saw that they were also a letter designer, bonus, huge bonus.
Yeah,
because
for sure, because you don't have to bring two people onto the same project. You just have one person who can solve the whole thing.
And so we'd give them the opportunity, or we'd say, would you like to do the title type as well for this illustration? The answer can be no, and that's fine. We'll do it. But if you're interested in doing it as part of the illustration, be our guest. And of course, often they would say, yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. That's extra work. So for folks listening, if a client comes to you and says, we'd love for you to illustrate, let's say a book cover, let's just keep it simple, a book cover. And the fee is going to be, somewhere in the $1,500 to $3,000 range, something like that, for an American publisher, for the illustration. Then they go, oh my gosh, we see that you do letter design? That's amazing. Hey, do you mind doing the title type? That is a completely different ask. Then it's not part of the illustration. It's extra.
Yeah.
Meaning you should be charging extra. So if it's $15,000, let's say it's $2,000 for easy math. It's $2,000 for the cover, and they're like, oh, we want you to do the title type. Okay, great. You got to charge for that too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that applies to illustrators. So you can have this additional fee of creating the lettering as well. And for designers that being able to design letter forms on top of the graphic design work, that already positions you as an expert. There's not that many people out there who can draw letter forms well. So if you are as a graphic designer, you have that expertise, that skill of drawing letter forms, that already allows you to raise your rates in an important way. I lost that word. So that already allows you to increase your rates.
Sure.
Because you can position yourself as an expert, as someone who can not only deliver a logotype, but it will create a custom logotype for you, one that you won't see anywhere else.
Right, and there's the value. The value. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So it is a way of adding perceived value to the book itself as well. So it's an advantage for an art director when they have an illustrator, or they find an illustrator that can also do letter design, for sure. On the pricing point, so
yes.
So people are listening going like, yeah, that's great. I'll do it. I'll charge more. What the hell do I charge? What the hell do they charge? And I know, is there a way to keep this simple? I don't think there is, because it's like, what are we talking about here? Are you doing an album cover? Are you doing a typography for a podcast? Are you doing a book cover, poster? How do you price your letter designs?
So lettering and letter design as you said, there's a range of projects you can work on. You can create a logotype, a custom logotype for a branding system, and it's a different price than creating a postcard for a editorial project. So
Right.
it's really a big range of prices that you can charge for your work. I would say that generally lettering work, when it's on the side, let me explain. Let me go back a few steps.
Okay.
So what is very interesting about lettering is that it works in the intersection of design and art. So as a lettering designer, you can work as an artist and you will be hired to bring your own style onto a project. So oftentimes I've been hired to work as a lettering artist, and they will ask me to replicate a certain style that I had onto a book cover because that suits the project. And then at the same time, you can fall on the design side of lettering,
Mm-hmm.
which is using your expertise at drawing letter forms to design a logotype or design a font. I feel that something great about this discipline is that it falls, you can bring your own style onto the table, or you can be that expert that knows exactly how an A should be drawn, how that curve should look like. You have that wiggle room as a lettering designer,
Right.
that you can fall onto the artist side or onto the design side. So when you fall onto the artist side, you will price your work the same way that you price an illustration. So you price the project, so the design,
Mm-hmm.
and you add the usage rights on top. And I believe that you have talked about this in the podcast for sure,
Mm-hmm.
Giuseppe. But
For sure.
yeah, in a few words, there's the value of the illustration that you create, and on top of that, there's the added value that has to do with for how long that illustration will be used, and in which territories, and
Right.
and for which applications, which also inflates the price of the project.
Right.
So I would say that illustration and lettering are very similar in that sense.
Sure.
That you have the price for the artwork, and on top of that, you have all the added rights that inflate the price. And when it comes to design, it also works in a similar way. I would say that when it comes to logotype design, for instance, you will also add usage rights to that logotype, add fees for complexity or for applications. I think often the pricing starts by positioning yourself in the right way. What I often hear is this fear of charging too much because you're afraid of losing the client. And my question is always whether you can afford to lose that client. Oftentimes, as creatives, we cannot afford, we put ourselves in the position of not being able to afford to lose a client. And therefore, we make ourselves too available, and we lose our leverage. So I think the first step to charging properly for your work is by having leverage in terms of the projects you can decline and the ones you need to accept, because also clients can sense it. If you are desperate to get the project, people can sense it, and that gives you less leverage to charge more for your work. On one hand, the technical side of, okay, charging for the artwork and adding all the rights to it. And on the other side is positioning yourself in a way that gives you leverage at the moment of negotiating your fees.
Yeah, and one of the a way to do it is well, I have no idea how to charge for this. So try to get out of them what they have in their budget for you. Do the math. Is that enough? Do you think that's a fair value for whatever it is that they're asking you to do? So for example, if someone comes to you and says, we'd love for you to do a book cover, can you give us a quote? You can say, well, that's great. Thank you so much for considering me. Would you mind providing me with your budget? They're not going to be like, we asked first, what's your quote? They're going to say, oh, our budget is going to be whatever. Let's say it's let's say it's $1,500. And you can come back and you can think about it for a second and think, okay, well, $1,500 for that. Yeah, that sounds about right. Or you can come, if you feel like $2,500 is more in line, just depending on, even who the author is, even how many units are they, is it going to be? You ask these questions, how many how many units are they going to print for the first print run? Oh, it's going to be 5,000 copies versus 10,000, or, like you said, territory. Oh, it's only going to be North American. It's not world rights, and it's only going to be whatever. Sit down and go, okay, if I do this for $2,500, I'll sleep really well. So you go back to them and say, this all sounds great. I'm happy to move forward with this if the budget is $2,500. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. I love that you're giving this step by step, because I think that's your listeners and any creative struggles the most. Like, how do I actually conduct this process? And I think what you started with, like the question of asking for the budget, I think that's a very relevant one. Also, in terms of simplifying the work for you, because if they name a budget that is completely out of your rates, then you don't even need to price that project.
Exactly.
You don't even need to have that conversation. So you're saving a lot of time and energy into filtering whether the client is for you or not.
Right.
And I think in the second step of like asking for the details and what are they going to use this for, you know, in a way, what you want by asking these questions is understanding the total scope of the project, and also what is the role that the work that you're doing is going to play in that project. Because if you realize that the client is going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into media spaces and advertising and billboards on the street, you need to adjust your pricing to the size of the project.
Right.
If your illustration is going to play an important role in that, your compensation needs to be also at the level of the investment that the client is going to do. So what you need to do through those questions is to understand what is the total investment that your client is going to do, and for you as a creative, what is the role that your work is going to play in that total investment?
Yeah. Tangents would have been a great title, I think, for a podcast, now that I think about it. Going off on a tangent. Tangents. Hi. Welcome to another episode of Tangents. That's
you can
perfect.
Go in any direction. You can just go in any direction. No one will
Today we're going to go off on a tangent on, it's just like the script writes itself. Man. Oh, well. Too little too late, I guess. Yeah. That's the other thing. It's like I still have not mastered how to keep it to an hour. I try to keep it to an hour, but it's what am I trying to say? It's hard to have such a great conversation and then go, anyways, all right, let's wrap it up. It's never been easy for me to do that, but we have to do that. So.
Yeah. And there's also so many things to talk about.
Oh my God, is there ever?
Already from pricing, we could be talking about pricing for hours.
Yeah.
And that's only a part of it. Yeah. So,
well, that's the hope too. Like usually, what I'm hoping happens is people are hearing us and they're like, "Oh, I'm interested in this," and then they, on their own volition, they take the initiative and look into it more, or hopefully this unlocks something for them, or it answers a question that's been blocking them for a while. Like that's sort of the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say to folks listening who want to get into letter design, or, really embrace the entrepreneurial lifestyle as you have, and you maybe quit their day job and go freelance like you did? And what piece of advice would you want to share with them?
Yeah. I think I will go back to what we talked about in the beginning, that building a business around your skills is a challenging one because it will involve a lot of personal stuff. At the same time, is a one that is worthwhile to go through. Sure. I think that you can only discover whether this is for you or not in the making, and you can only discover whether this is something that you are able to build by just building it. And I think that the experience in itself is worthwhile. In my experience, building a business around your skills is a lifestyle, really. It's a way of living. I cannot imagine myself doing anything else than what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. I cannot imagine myself living in a different way and making decisions in a different way that the way I'm doing it nowadays, I think is a life choice to become your own boss. And I think that's why many of us choose it. And for anybody listening, whatever it is the skill that you have, you can definitely build a business around it. It will take work. It will require you to stick at it, as you said, Giuseppe. But it's possible for everybody. And it all starts with you. It all starts with you creating great work, but also developing skills of letting other people know what you do, being able to speak about your work, and making yourself visible to the world.
To learn more about Martina, visit martinaflor.com. If you find value in this podcast, you can support it by subscribing to my best-selling Substack. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you will access hundreds of articles on the art, practice, and history of illustration, unlock bonus podcast episodes called Extra Credit, and connect with other members of the ID community. Join me on Substack by visiting illustrationdept.substack.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.